Today we are testing the brand new Cunfon M200 electric dirt bike. So this is exactly how it comes, shipped to your house. It was delivered by FedEx. Let's get this thing quickly unboxed and see how easy it is to put together. Tell you what, came well protected. You know, it seems like this bike came pre-assembled for the most part. So here's everything else that came in the package. Front wheel and tire. Tire size is a 60-114. Pretty typical for these size pit bikes. 190 millimeter front rotor, front fender, front number plate, toolkit, charger. The charger is a 54.6 volt output 5 amp charger. So this is a 48 volt bike. User manual, assembly guide, kickstand. These are the 2 bolts to mount the kickstand to the frame. Left and right pegs with the pins, springs, and cotter pins. Just takes a little bit of effort to get the 2 posts at the bottom of the front number plate to clip into the front fender, but it actually feels super secure even without the bolt in place. But I do like the plastic so far. The front end looks kind of like an ETM RTR, while the rest reminds me of a modern Husqvarna dirt bike, especially with the color scheme. Before you throw the front wheel on, it's a good idea to add some grease on the front axle. Just reduces unnecessary friction. Like most electric pit bikes, there are 2 spacers for the front wheel. The longer one goes on the side where the brake caliper is, and then the shorter one goes on the opposite. So I'm just gonna throw on the shorter spacer first. Get the front rotor in between the brake pads. Slide the axle through. Put the longer spacer on the caliper side. There should be no excess drag on the front wheel. And that's it. The Cunfon M200 is now fully assembled. That's got to be the quickest I've been able to put together one of these electric pit bikes, and I've tested quite a few of them in the last year or so. I think this one required the least amount of steps for the end user. It only took me a little over half an hour to put this together by myself, and keep in mind I was filming the whole process. So a father and son can probably put this together in 20 minutes. This really is a very good looking bike with the modern plastics and especially the side covers. It looks almost like a Stark Varg. I like that they covered up the motor and battery area, unlike this Crunch X1 Spark where everything's just exposed. I would just have a little bit more peace of mind with it being all covered up if I were to ride a wet trail. And I'm really liking the frame design. Seems like they're using much thicker aluminum over here. The design of this section over here looks almost like a traditional dirt bike. And the swing arm construction is a lot heavier duty. Like this rear section where the wheel is bolted onto is much thicker than the other pit bikes in this price category. And here's a closer look at the welds on the swing arm and the frame. It's definitely something I would trust sending my kid down to do some jumps with. Just a quick rundown of the specs and features of this bike. It's got a claim top speed of 34 miles per hour on a 3000 watt mid-drive motor that produces 200 newton meters of torque, 40 miles of range per charge on a 23.5 amp hour, 48 volt lithium battery pack utilizing LG cells. It's got front and rear hydraulic suspension, hydraulic disc brakes front and rear with 190 millimeter rotors. It also has some sort of eABS technology, which I don't actually know how that works since the brake levers don't have any sort of brake sensors on them. Comment below if you happen to know how the eABS system works. Wheel set is a 14-inch front and 12-inch rear, pretty typical for pit bikes. It's got real knobby tires on there. Rear tire size is 80/112. This already comes with a pretty heavy-duty 420 chain on it. Full twist throttle, similar to what comes on a Suron. Here's a closer look at the brake levers. Master cylinder assembly looks just like the ones that they use on a Tudio. Nice spark pad here, and the display is pretty simple. Just turn it on with a button here on the right side. You can cycle through the different screens using the button on the side. The bars on the right are referring to the battery charge. This screen is referring to your speed, trip, and odometer reading. The bike starts in a 0 mode, which means the throttle is completely deactivated. You can just toggle through the different power settings with the plus and minus buttons at the bottom of the screen. So 1 is going to be the slowest and 3 will be the fastest. Again, going into the 0 mode will deactivate the throttle. Another thing that completely deactivates the throttle is this magnetic safety rope. So right now the throttle is completely activated. But if your kid's riding it and you want to be extra safe, you can have them strap this around their wrist. So if they fall off their bike, this will completely come off and it won't just whiskey throttle on them. It'll just completely deactivate the throttle until they get back on their bike and put that on. Pretty good safety feature for a beginner bike. The charge port is over here on the right side. You just take the silicone plug off and this is what the port looks like. To access or remove the battery, you have to remove the seat first. There's supposed to be some sort of quick release pin over here that secures the back of the seat, but unfortunately that did not come with my bike. I just sent an email to Cunfon about that a couple minutes ago, so we'll see how fast the customer service responds. So here's the battery. To remove it, you have to unscrew this bolt. And just slide the bracket back. Don't forget to disconnect the connector first. You actually have to press this release button first in order for you to pull it out. Here's a closer look at that battery that they're using. This is a 48 volt and uses LG cells battery voltage gauge. And the port is the same as the one on the side of the bike. You know, the listing said 23.5 amp hours, but the battery itself says 20 amp hours. So this battery has a waterproof rating of IPX7, though the bike is rated IP67. So you should have no problems riding through some puddles and some wet trails, though the company said not to submerge it completely in some deep water, which I would never do that on any of these pit bikes anyway. Let's take a closer look under the hood here. So here's the top view of the motor that they're using. It's got some sort of gear reduction in place. It almost looks like a what is that, a QS 120 maybe? Looks very similar to the one that they use on the Roar Mantis Mini R. If that's the case, that should be able to produce a good amount of torque. And then the controller is, can't quite read that sticker, but I know this is a far driver controller just looking at the housing. And the heatsink, that's definitely a far driver controller. We'll take a deeper dive at all the components and possibilities for upgrades on this bike on another video. One limiting factor though, as far as upgrades that I've noticed so far, is the space for the battery. Since it's pretty much squeezed in between the frame, you can't really go much wider. You can possibly go thicker and a little bit taller, but that means I would have to get a custom battery made. I'm gonna ask them more to see what they can do. I do like how easy it is to pull the battery in and out though. Since I don't have that pin yet, I'm going to be using this bolt for the meantime. So this bike supposedly only weighs 105 pounds, and that seems about right. Ooh, that rear suspension is very soft though. So is the front. I was a little bit confused with the load capacity on the listing. I think one said 90 pounds and then the other said 220 pounds. Those are two very drastic numbers. But if I were to first sit on this bike without looking at the spec sheet, I would have guessed that this bike is not designed for anybody over 150 pounds. Just for size perspective, I'm 5'8" at 185 pounds, and this is what I look like standing over the bike. The seat is about 2 or 3 inches below my inseam, so it's definitely lower than some of the other pit bikes that we have here. And the recommended rider height for this bike is 4.1 to 5.9 foot, which means I'm at the very top of that range anyway. I think this bike would be perfect for any kid that's below 150 pounds. And the throttle is very not sensitive at all. Like, this is on the highest power setting and you could really just easily modulate the throttle. So I really like that about this bike so far. That's my pet peeve on some of these entry-level pit bikes, is how twitchy the throttle is, especially for a kid that's just trying to learn. And just to give you guys an idea of the size compared to other similar pit bikes on the market right now, it is about an inch or two shorter as far as seat height compared to the Tudio and the Yasma IN10. If you want to get more details on the Cunfon M200, I'll leave a link to their listing in the description below. You can also save a couple bucks by using discount code PATOutdoors. While we got relatively full charge here, let's go test out the top speed on mode 3. It seems to be 35 miles per hour, which is exactly what the company claimed. Let's see what it is on the lower modes, mode 2. All right, mode 2 top speed seems to be locked at 25 miles per hour. Oh, the speedometer is stuck in kilometers right now. I gotta change that. And we'll test it on mode 1 just for shits. Mode 1 is capped at 16 miles per hour. I'm just gonna jump back to mode 3 for the rest of the ride. I mean, what I really like so far is how this throttle feels. Like, I can see this being super easy for any kid to learn on, no matter what power level. I mean, the suspension seems to be handling my weight just fine, but I can just imagine this potentially bottoming out if I try to do any sort of jumping with it off-road. All right, let's see if this thing will handle any snow. Oh man, this thing's pretty much ice. Oh. It's cutting through it. It's cutting through it just fine. Man, I'm so sick of this snow though. It's almost 50 degrees outside and it's been almost 3 weeks since it last snowed here in Virginia, and it just won't go anywhere. And the worst part about it is the top layer pretty much froze up in a lot of places, so can't really ride off-road trails right now. Yo, for a stock 48 volt bike though, this thing's got a decent amount of torque. Dude, the brakes on this thing are legit. You could almost do a stoppie on this thing if you're skilled enough. Oh shit. Yeah, I don't see a reason to upgrade these brakes. The suspension though squats very easily with a 180 pound rider. I wouldn't really recommend this for anybody over maybe 150, 160 pounds, especially if you're planning on doing any sort of off-road trail riding. But as long as you're not hitting jumps or you're just riding mostly on the street, it's gonna handle it just fine. Since this bike is technically designed for smaller children, I'm pretty much just not using it for what it's designed for. Planning on doing some modifications to this bike though, just to better suit an adult rider. I already have a slightly longer suspension for the front and a slightly heavier duty shock for the rear. I also want to crank the power up a little bit, since now that I know that it's got a far driver controller, I'm going to mess with the tune settings and potentially cram a 60 volt battery in here to see how fast we can get this thing to go with a stock controller and stock motor. If you want to get more information on the M200, I'll leave a link to their listing in the description below. You can also get yourself 5% off using discount code PATOutdoors. But if you enjoyed today's video, do me a favor and hit that like button. And if you like this kind of content and want to keep up with some of my projects or some of my reviews, make sure you subscribe to this channel and turn your bell notification on. But this is going to be it for today. Thank you for watching.